Hi there, welcome back to my MGB maintenance series. This is part 3, and in this one we're going to be talking about the 6-month or 6,000 mile service. I'm taking all of the content pretty much word for word out of this MGB driver's handbook, and this handbook was written very much in period for using the car as a daily driver. So a lot of us don't use our MGBs every day, and the intervals suggested in here I'm not suggesting are relevant to you particularly, but it's pretty much gauging how you use your car and where these service steps might fit in for you. So you might only use your car sparingly, so maybe the mileage doesn't apply to you, nor does the frequency, but you would probably still want to do some of these things rather than 6 months. You might do them every year, and whereas you have like a weekly check, for example, in part 1 we had a weekly check. Rather than every week, you might just do it before starting the car in a long time or preparing for a long journey or something like that. So for those of you who haven't seen part 1 and part 2, they're in a playlist that I'm putting together for this whole series. So I'll put a link to that in a card in the top part of the screen now, so you can catch up on that if you want to. And we're referring to a table within the driver's handbook for routine maintenance. So there's various columns for different maintenance intervals, and today we're talking about column A. So again, same as my part 2 one, column A incorporates a lot of the things that are in the more frequent service intervals. So I'm not going to go back over those, and I'm just going to do the things which are additional to the ones that we did in the previous parts. Also, because this is written as a sort of in period everyday driver's handbook, things do sort of change over time. The cars get older, etc., etc. So there are publications out there which focus on how to maintain an older car rather than using your car as a daily driver, which this is kind of written for. So I'm not saying this is the best way to service your car, I'm just taking it literally from the driver's handbook. So there are other publications out there which might be more relevant to you, might suggest them doing things in a slightly better way as people have learnt the car over time. But for this series, I'm just concentrating on the sort of official handbook. So as I mentioned, there's lots of different parts to this particular service. So what I'll do is I'll try and put a list of the different things that I'm doing in the comments, in the description below, and I'll try and put sort of time codes next to them. So if you're interested in a certain part of it, then you can scan that list and have a look at what part you want to focus on. But at high level, essentially what we're going to be doing is an oil change, checking the oil in the gearbox and the diff, a whole load of lubrication stuff, so suspension and accelerator cable and various other bits and pieces. Okay, so the first two things to check inside the car are actually two things that I forgot to do in my previous video. One of them is checking that the mirrors are not cracked or have got crazing over them. Mine are fine. My rear view mirror needs a bit of a clean, but that's about it. And also my passenger side mirror has fallen off. You may have seen another video where I kind of explained how taking the car cover off, the mirror came off with it. Either it got snagged on there or something, but the plinth that holds the mirror on was a bit worn, so it's made of plastic, so it just worn out over time as the grub screw has been in there. The other thing to check is seat belts. So mine are fine as well. There's no rips or frays of the material, and the mounting points seem pretty robust. These kind of things are checked as part of the MOT, but as these cars are historic vehicles now, you're not required to do an MOT every single year. But it is a good idea to still do it from a safety standpoint, because even though you might do all your servicing and that kind of stuff, it's these little bits which are sort of paramount to safety. But if you're thinking about your brakes and your suspension, you might not think about your seatbelts potentially and forget to sort of check them. So always worth getting a qualified mechanic to go through that MOT check, even on a voluntary basis, just to make sure that your car's still in good, safe running order. Right, so the first of the things that we're going to check as part of the 6,000 mile service, I would normally do the oil change first, but I'm still waiting for an oil filter to arrive, so that'll come maybe later in the video, or by the power of video editing, I may have already just done that. But inside the car, there's a thing you can do for early cars, which is slightly different for later cars, so I don't know how you'd necessarily have a look at this, but it's the gearbox oil level, and there's a little flap inside the car where you can have a little look and see what's going on there. So we'll do that now. So on early cars, behind the centre console, there's a little flap of carpet. I mean, these are replacement carpets anyway, but I think it's the same on the normal ones. You lift back this flap, and under here you can see there's a, well, if I move this out of the way properly, there's a rubber bung, and beneath this rubber bung is the Gearbox oil dipstick. So we'll see if we can get that out and have a look. Right, so that was harder than it needed to be, but this is the bung that came out, and it's actually pretty sort of dry and a little bit cracked, so that's why it was so hard. If it was a more sort of supple piece of rubber, that would have came out a lot easier, I would have thought, but a bit of prying with a screwdriver and out it popped. And I can just feel inside this hole there is a dipstick. Let's pull that out now. And we have got oil on there. Let's have a look. So it is looking reasonably fresh, and it's just on the high point of the dipstick there. So that looks alright to me. I mean, I wanted to replace the gearbox oil anyway as a matter of course, but I'm actually surprised by that. I thought it'd be in a lot worse shape, especially because I've never done this before, but maybe if I've taken it somewhere to be serviced, they've done that for me. But yeah, looks alright to me. I'll pop that back, put the rubber bung back on loosely, because that's also the filling point in there. So you'd probably be better off with a syringe or something putting the oil back in. But yeah, I'll make a video on replacing the gearbox oil at a later date. Okay, so we are under the car now, and I put the car up on jack stands just so we can get a better look at what we're doing here. And we're going to be changing, or not changing, rather checking the differential oil level. So you can see at the bottom here, just there's a drain plug, and actually that's a little bit moist, which indicates there's potentially some seepage going on out of the back here, and potentially why my diff's so noisy. It could be that the oil's low, or could even have run out of there, I suppose. I'm not sure if you have to do this jacked up. I've done it just so that the camera is able to view things, but potentially you can get to this filler plug when the car's on the ground. I didn't actually check, but certainly jacking up you can get to it, and it's this plug on the back. So I was just testing this particular bit, which is a square drive bit in a sort of spark plug socket here. Fits in the hole, and it does as 11mm, but I think it might even be slightly bigger than that, because there seems to be, you know, maybe some rust protection has been put on here at some point. It's flaking off now, but that might make the actual aperture look a bit smaller than it actually is, so it could be more like a 12mm there. So I'm going to attempt to get this off, all the while making sure I don't rock the car off the jack stands, but we'll see if we get any luck undoing this. I mean, it does look pretty like it's been in situ for a while, so it might not come out particularly easily. Might be one of the times we have to leave it with some penetrating oil to get it to unfree, but we'll give it a go and see if we can check the level of it. That was hard. So using a socket didn't work, and I even tried to get this attached to like a drill, but that didn't work either. But what I have found works is if you use adjustable spanner, so something with a long arm on it, you can get enough purchase on this bit to undo the drain plug. It took ages to do this, by the way. I don't think it's going to be a quick thing. I should probably put something under here in case something spills out, but I've got some kitchen towel for now, but I should really have a drain just in case it's overfilled. Oh, let's see what comes out of there. Nothing. Right. Next thing to do is to check the level of it, and it should just be level with this plug. I mean, we're not exactly level, I suppose. We are on a slight slope, so jacking the rear of the car up, the wheels are only just off the floor, so maybe slightly high, but oh, that is right there as well. Again, that oil doesn't look too bad. I'll be replacing it as part of this series anyway, but that'll be in a couple of episodes time, because it's not a 6,000 mile service item. As you can see, it's hard to get off. But what you should always do. So when I mentioned that I was doing this to a couple of people at work, I got the same advice both times, and that was to always undo the fill plug before you undo the drain plug, because if you can't get that out and you've let all the oil out of your diff, then you can't drive your car until you've got the diff oil in there. So be aware of that. You'll also notice that some of that rust-proof protection's come off here as my attempt to try and do that. So it wasn't doing any good anyway if it was only sort of flaking off. But yeah, my oil seems alright. It does seem to be just sort of level with this thing. So I don't think I need to put any more in there, certainly. Oh, it stinks. Smells like an old tractor. So I'll just put the drain plug back on for now, not to over tighten it as well. And then when we come to do the whole oil change, then we'll at least know that fill plug undoes. Onto the next job. Right, so it's another day, another outfit, and I'm preparing to do the oil change now. Ordinarily I'll be filming this outside, but neighbours are out in their garden and it's a bit awkward to film out of there because we're quite close together. The other thing as well is that before you do an oil change, the best thing to do is to run your car for about 5 minutes or so, just to give the oil a bit more of heat, and that allows it to drain a bit quicker once you get the drain plug undone, etc. But because my car has a flat battery, I've got to give it a proper charge. I didn't really want to jump start it, run it for a few minutes and let it discharge again. Again, because of neighbours and close proximity and everything. But also I think I've got an exhaust leak, so it's probably going to stink out the driveway a bit as well. So to do the oil change then, under these less than ideal conditions, I've got my new oil. I've also got a funnel just to help put it in the car. I also have a new oil filter, so we'll be renewing this as well. This is just a standard sort of authentic reproduction of what had been there originally. It's Classic Gold is the brand. And a drain pan. So this is what you need really to catch the oil. And this has got a handy spout for pouring into like a disposal container once we're done. So you'll join me in a minute outside with me probably trying to undo the drain plug under the car. Right then, we are jacked up the car. I'll put some axle stands underneath as well, just for safety's sake, with the jack sort of just underneath the cross member at the front there as a standby. But you can see I've put the drain bowl, whatever you want to call it, right below this here, and this is the oil drain plug. So I've got to find the appropriate sized spanner for that and allow the oil to drip into that pan and let it run out until it stops running. Okay, so while the oil was draining out, I thought I'd have a go at getting the oil filter off. So these are supposed to be kind of a sort of spin-on fit, hand tight, and you're supposed to not do it up tight, so tight you can't get it off, but whoever's put this one on seems to have given it a proper crank down. So I've had to resort to a bit of brute force here, and if you hammer in a screwdriver into the side of the old oil filter, that gives you quite a lot of leverage to start turning it, and it's starting to come off now I've done that. It's quite satisfying to watch actually, after struggling with it hand tight for about 10 minutes. But now that's sort of loosened up a bit, gives you a chance just to undo it by hand. Oh. Now this is going to be a bit messy, but my draining bowl is located just under here, so hopefully it won't be too bad. Just need to flip it up the right way pretty quickly so it doesn't go over everything. There we go, and get it up. Oh dear, there we go, not too bad. What I really hope I haven't done is damage the filter side there. Feels like it's got a little dent in it from my brute force, because this is actually an adapter. This would have had a different type of filter originally. I think it would have had a canister type rather than a spin-on filter, but not too much harm done. And when we come to put on the new one, we'll make sure to put a bit of oil around this rubber bit, which seems to be sorely missing on this one, which is why it was so tricky to do. Okay, got them side by side now. I should probably mention that putting a screwdriver in the side of it is not the recommended thing to do if it's stuck. You can get specialist tools to get oil filters off. This was kind of a last resort because I don't have one of those tools. Right, so side by side then, got my replacement oil filter there. It looks slightly different, but this is just different brands will be different things, different colours as well. Like this says Wicks on the side. This one's just the classic gold one, but I've even had a bright orange Fram one before. So don't worry if you get different colours, it's more the thread that matters there, and they look pretty identical. So as I said then, they've got a bit of a rubber seal on it. It's best to get, I mean, I've just shaken up my engine oil box just to get a bit of oil on the lid, and I'm just going to use my finger just to like run a bit around the side. Now this just helps it seal, but also gives it that lubrication for when you want to take it off in another year or 6,000 miles time or whatever interval you decided to set yourself for oil changes. Then that should be good, and it should just be spin on ease. So let's do that now. Put that there. There we go. Spins on nicely. Now we've got to the point now where it's getting a bit tight. Just don't turn it too much. It just doesn't need to be tight. Like, I'm not even putting much pressure on it and it stopped turning, so I think that's going to be fine. I found it easier to take off my alternator wires just to get purchase on here, but not everyone will have to do that. That's the oil filter done, and if we look under the car, it stopped dripping more or less now into the pan, so I think it's time to put the drain plug back in, which is a fairly key part of the process. Tighten that up and then put the car back down again and fill it up with oil. Okay, so drain plug back in, time to fill the engine back up with oil. Mine comes with a handy filler, my tin of oil here, but they don't tend to work that well, so I have put my funnel in the oil filler hole. Engines vary with their sump capacity. Ones with oil coolers hold a bit more than ones without, and it seems like earlier engines have a bigger sump than later cars, but always check with a dipstick every now and again just to make sure that you're not going over maximum. And it also recommends that you, once you've got towards the desired level, run the car for a bit, turn it off, then check the level again once it's warm, because once all the oil's been pushed around the engine and everything, then it's likely to have dropped slightly. That's just something I'm going to have to do once I've got the car charged up and running again, some point in the future. It doesn't matter if it's slightly under the maximum, but yeah, probably require a top up once I've driven it for a bit. Okay, let's see how we get on. Okay, so oil change is now done. This is a 4.5 litre container. It feels like there's about a litre left, so I think it's approximately 3.5 litres for my car to fill up the oil, and that's kind of as per the book for a car with an oil cooler. And I've also got this big pan of dirty engine oil to there's a stuff from the tree floating in it now. That's not what was in my engine, so I need to get rid of that safely somehow. I do have a like a disposal type container which seals up and you take to the tip, so I'll get rid of that way. You should never put it down the sink or down the drain or anything, because that's pretty dangerous. But yeah, on to the next job. Okay, so another day, another outfit, but still no haircut. Now we're on to the phase where we want to talk about lubrication. So innuendo hats on, you want to keep your nipples greased and your shaft lubricated. There's a few things to lubricate. So the easy ones are like the hinges, door locks, and for that you want to use like a multi-purpose 3-in-1 oil like this. You don't need anything specialist, they're just locks and hinges, so that's fine. But for other parts of the car, things that are a bit more heavy duty, you want to use like a proper grease gun and a lithium grease. So for suspension, the drive shaft, you want to use something like this. There are some other points within the engine bay that you want to lubricate as well, so the throttle linkage and also the sort of accelerator pedal and things, and for that you can just use this again. There's kind of like a rule, so if it's just simple things like a linkage or a lock or something, then just use this. If it's heavy duty, then use your lithium grease, so your suspension and drive shaft and stuff. But if it's something that gets hot and spins round and round and round, then engine oil is best. So for example, your distributor shaft, you can put a drop of engine oil in there to lubricate that. What you don't want to use is WD-40, as that's just too thin, and actually it's great for sort of cleaning stuff or undoing a stuck bolt or something like that, but because it is quite penetrative, it's thin and actually can wash away some good lubricants. So you should always use a sort of thicker oil if you want something to last. Okay, so we'll get under the car and we'll start off with this, see if we can grease the suspension. Right, so I don't know how much of this you're going to be able to make out. I think there are 2 or 3 grease nipples per side of the suspension. You can see one just here. What you want to do is you just want to get a grease gun onto them. That's why I find one with the flexible hoses is best. Once that's on there, just give it a few pumps and you'll feel that going in. And that's probably enough, and you just want to do this regularly. Right, so that was a bit unfortunate. My grease nipple actually came off in the grease gun and it's stuck now, so I can't actually complete this today. But the one that broke off was down here. The other one is just above it. It's like a silver dot. You might be able to make out that on the camera. And then the other one is just up there. A few strokes in the grease gun for each of those on each side. Should be fine. And then the other one is on the drive shaft somewhere. So let's see if we can find that now. So I'm right under the car again. You can see my drive shaft. I'm feeling around in here. This is it towards the front of the car. Looking back from the back towards the gearbox, and I think I found the where you grease it. Doing this by feel, so it's a little bit. It's this bit on the side. I don't know if that comes out on the thing, but I can feel that there's a nipple there for greasing. Got my finger behind it. I don't know if you can see that. But without my grease gun, I can't do that, which is a bit of a bummer. But at least I know where to put it on. Okay, so in order to try and make this video not last forever and ever, I'll just quickly go through some of the stuff that we didn't do, and I'll probably save for a later video. So first one is clean and check spark plugs. So in a later video I'm actually going to replace the spark plugs, so might be one just to save till then. If you were going to clean them up, then something like a petroleum based like petrol would be good, or even WD-40, you probably use that to clean up some spark plugs, and to gap them correctly just use like a screwdriver or a hard surface. Other things we didn't do, lubricate the distributor and do the points and do the timing. I've electronic ignition, so I can't do the points, and checking the timing, I don't have the equipment either, so a bit of a specialist thing to do, so either leave it to your garage, or you have to probably learn how to do the timing check with the strobe light and everything like that. Probably maybe worth a video in itself if I ever get the equipment. Front wheel alignment, again, I don't have the equipment to do that. Clean and grease the battery terminals, so just a wire brush and some white lithium grease you can use to grease those terminals. It just stops them from corroding. I do actually need to do that, but haven't done it this time. And a road test to check your instruments. So we haven't been driving this car because it's stuck on my drive at the moment and boxed in, so you can't do that, but I'll probably do a drive as a subsequent video that I'll make in the next few weeks. Is there anything else? Carburetor oil. So I've got a Weber carburetor, so I don't have any oil to top up. But if you've got SUs, then you need to undo the tops of your dash pots and fill it up with the correct oil there. I can't show you because I don't have those types of carburetors, but quite simple to do. You just have to fill it up within a certain distance from the top and just check that the damper thing moves up and down freely. So I think that's it. A bit of a anticlimax with my grease gun having the thing broken off inside it, so I'm going to have to probably get like a new fitting for that and get a replacement grease nipple for suspension there. We'll probably leave it there. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you learned something, or if you feel like I've done something wrong, then please let me know in the comments, and I'll take that on board for the next time I do a service on my MG. But until the next time, see you later. Bye bye.